Episode 4 marks our first priority episode of the season, and while it has its highlights, it's not what I expected. We've got a lot to talk about for this good episode though, so let's just get right into it. We start with Garf and Mimi heading into City Hall in response to Capella's broadcast. Garf can smell the scent of blood, and Mimi desperately tries to get him to stop, but Garf continues pushing forward anyway, finding a pile of corpses and the two who did it. Despite Mimi's cries to retreat, Garf goes in anyway and fights the two hooded figures, and quickly feels that he has been pushed to the brink of death. This is when Mimi pays the price for Garf's wounded pride, as he tries to desperately heal the wound, but something isn't right. To those that have watched my previous cut content videos, what is happening here should be readily apparent. This episode marks yet another stumble for Garfield, going on a horrendous tailspin as his pride has been damaged, his past wounds have been scratched open, the haunting figure of Elsa creeps up behind him, and now, his lack of thought ends up causing Mimi a potentially fatal wound. After this, we get a scene between Heinkel and Felt. Fun fact, this scene is entirely anime original, as we eventually only hear that this happened. However, we get to see that Felt has been taken hostage by Heinkel, and is the primary reason why Reinhardt is being kept in check, and why the threat of the witch cult can't be dealt with. Given our timeline, it's likely this is very shortly after he's available to help for Sirius. If Reinhardt can contribute right now, what do you guys think is going to happen? We cut back to the meeting that started in episode 3, and after hearing about the witch's remains, Subaru can't help but feel a chill run down his spine. How could that be when the Witch of Envy was sealed, not killed? Of all the people that reassured him, it's Aldebaran who pipes up and tells him that they don't necessarily belong to Envy, as there are other witches. There is some nice Subaru characterization here that is cut, but after that, we address the elephant in the room, Capella Emerauda Lagunica. The Capella part of her name is unique, but there was in fact a member of the royal family known as Emerauda, and both Al and Crusch consider her to be faking. Emerauda was alive during the period of the Demi-Human War 50 years ago, and there is a bit of cut information here. Emerauda was beautiful and wise, but cruel to the extreme. She was branded as a heretic, and her death was suppressed for a long while. There is an entire sequence here cut for Ferris relating to the royal family, which we can touch on later. We learned quite a bit about Capella in this episode, so what is Capella? Well, it's the brightest star in the constellation of Auriga, and is the 6th brightest star in the sky. Rising at about 9 PM at the time of recording, you can see its shining and flickering beauty pretty early in the night sky. Capella represents the goat that the charioteer in Auriga is carrying. In Greek mythology, the goat's horn was accidentally broken up, and transformed into the cornucopia, which could be filled with whatever its owner desired, which may play an interesting part in what her power seems to be. Capella was also considered as Capella of the Pleiades, due to its role in pointing out that sight in the night sky, which we'll get into later. We discover that Anastasia cleverly hijacked the witch cult's old conversation mirrors from Season 1, as Julius and Ricardo call in, and we learn that Mimi has been terribly wounded. We move down to the infirmary with Ferris using healing magic, and Kiritaka finally arrives. He confirms that the city was used as a trap for a witch. When Subaru tries to think about who it could be, a small murmur comes from inside Al's jet black helmet, as he mutters that Typhon had drowned in a flood. It was also stated that there are really no records remaining, and it is only a myth that one met their end here, so how does Al know? Let's put a pin in this for now. Ricardo thanks Garf for saving Mimi, and Garf can't believe that. His actions are why Mimi has wound up where she is. Garf, who had such a strength-based personality, had so much of it crumbling down around him in one day, but last episode did give us a moment of reprieve for him. Him crying on the rooftop is a great moment, because while one traditionally might think of crying as weakness, unfortunately due to many preconceived notions about the particular situation, it's a moment of strength, finally processing everything that has happened to him, accepting his feelings, and steeling his resolve to keep going until, you know. Al says it's time to talk about what is next. We see Wilhelm put a hand over his shoulder, informing everyone that it is likely the divine protection of the Death God. This is touching on a bit of cut content, but it's not all the way yet, so we'll talk about it later. Priority number 1 becomes stopping Lust by retaking City Hall. There's a bit more cut here that I think will be relevant for anime only, so stay tuned for that. As the crew heads out, Subaru asks Al what he's going to do if he can even fight. And in a stark contrast from earlier, Al says that the situation has changed and he's going to go find Priscilla. He states that he has no use in this boss fight, and that Subaru shouldn't be fighting either, but accepts it. He has one piece of advice, the word advice said in English, and states that if Gluttony shows up, don't say your real names. A shiver runs up Subaru's spine, and Al turns and just dips. Now, Aldebaran has been incredibly suspicious in this episode, being the one to bring up other witches, somehow being aware of Typhon and her method of death, and now speaking English and giving advice on gluttony. Not to mention his sudden heel turning about the fight for City Hall, Al, or Aldebaran, is extremely suspicious. But what is Aldebaran? That's right, star time. Aldebaran is the brightest star in the constellation of Taurus, called Aldebaran because it derives from Arabic meaning the follower, as the star is notable for chasing the Pleiades throughout the sky, both being up at around 9:30 p.m. at the time of recording. It follows the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which the Bull of Heaven was unleashed upon the world before being slain by Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and having the bull thrown into the sky to form the constellation of Taurus, and would then be seen as a hunter following its prey, the Pleiades. Fun tidbit, by the way, certainly not related in any way. The Pleiades in Japan are known as Subaru. Do with this information what you will. Make sure to comment down below any theories you may have on Aldebaran, the character, not the star. The final section of this episode takes place in front of City Hall, which is an all-out brawl between our team and theirs, including 20 pink-colored masses of flesh that now sit in front of the building. We get some really great action sequences as everyone busts out their cool flashy moves against the cultists, and the anime finally lets Subaru be raw and use his whip to shift the advantage too. The battlefield changes when Capella comes down as a black dragon. She comments about Subaru's scent, asking if he got lost, which I can only imagine refers to his miasma. Julius unleashes his Outclauseria, which completely ravages Capella's body, but we see an incredible regeneration sequence, as the narration at this part of the chapter states that Capella has conquered death. The clock tower rings, and Capella retreats into the building, but they can't afford to let her break the morale of the city, so they go after her until they run into the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, Roy Alfred? There's two of them. 2 gluttonies is bad enough, but we also get a post-credit scene of Regulus asking Amelia if she is a virgin. Interesting priorities for a Sin Archbishop. Overall, considering this episode was billed as a priority episode, can't help but feel a little bit disappointed that it had weaker action scenes than even episode 2 at times. Not to say that this was a bad episode, because it wasn't at all. It was greatly consistent, and Capella's dragon looked fantastic in a scene where everyone expected her to be a 3D model. I just never really got the feel of priority outside of a cut or two, and my only hope is that because of the dragon and multiple characters in the battlefield, it hindered what could be from future priority episodes. We don't have any tremendous cuts, just some overall consistent ones with the anime continuity, and a few things that are unfortunately removed. First, during the discussion about Emerauda Lagunica, her cause of death was removed. It was said that she succumbed to illness at a young age, and I'm not sure if this made it into the anime, but Wilhelm talks about how her death was not mourned by the kingdom, and she was denied a state funeral. Also about Capella, upon hearing that someone may be impersonating a royal, Ferris gets extremely angry, shaking his fists in rage, saying that they are doing something unforgivable. This is a direct reference to the side material known as EX1, which goes over the pasts of Crusch and Ferris. I would recommend reading it, or if you don't feel like doing that, I also have a video on it. However, it contains massive spoilers for Season 3, so maybe wait if you don't want to be spoiled. There was also a cut where the people at the round table note how calm and collected Subaru is for once in his life, and to shift any and all possible compliments towards himself away, he states that if causing a stink and having a tantrum would solve things, he would do that. Al, of all people, pipes up and says that Subaru is twisted in his own way, and this is a comment that actually bothers Subaru, but he tries to ignore it for the rest of the meeting. If you watched cut content videos or heard about this one, you will know exactly why Wilhelm put his hand on his shoulder and diagnosed what the divine protection affecting Mimi is. At the end of Arc 3, Wilhelm and Subaru were supposed to have a conversation where Wilhelm tells him that his shoulder wound is bleeding again, a wound inflicted by his wife, Teresia von Estrella, via her divine protection of the Death God. It was something cut from Season 1, unfortunately, so we lost some good foreshadowing points, but I'll let you all debate what this could mean. When deciding who goes to City Hall, there's a small cut here that I thought I would clarify for anime-onlys because I thought that they might wonder why this happened, but if you're wondering why they aren't sending any of the dragon scales or more soldiers to retake City Hall, it's because they decided to station them at HQ to protect it. And if you're wondering why Subaru is walking around just fine, it's because Ferris cast a spell on his leg to make him feel no pain. Not that he isn't injured anymore. I think this was mentioned briefly, but I figured I'd expand a little bit. And finally, the last cut relates to Aldebaran again. As mentioned in the last video, his isekai status was cut from the anime, and so far they are acting as if it hasn't happened, which does have some possibility for an anime original reveal, and we see them be consistent with it in this episode, because Subaru does not use English words when speaking with Al like he does in the novel, since he doesn't think he'd get it. Even though they left in Al using English words to Subaru, interesting decision. Like I said, nothing that huge was cut this week, but there you go. A pretty good episode that I do think could have been a little bit better, but otherwise it was fine. See you next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Garf with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.